Great morning, family. This is your FBA community folk herbalist, Tanya Brooks, coming to you live. And this morning, I'm going to be talking about having clarity in the difference between choices versus control, and knowing that they are entirely different. Okay, having clarity between choices and control. It's very rainy here today, but it's somewhat warm. Turn this down, no copyright strikes. So I'm gonna use myself as an example. And let me just say this. Warning, everyone is warned before they are destroyed. Talking about having clarity and knowing the difference between a choice versus control. So, as a young woman, well, a lot of times, let me just go back a little bit. So, if you know me, a lot of times people, they look at me and they say, like, or they have said, Tanya, you've been through a lot, concerning death in my immediate family. So, how did you deal with it? And, how are you still in your right mind? And, like, I don't even understand how you go through what you've gone through and you're still, like, you're good. I remember in the late 90s, seeking therapy, because I was dealing with a lot of anger over things that I had no control over as a child. But as I grew and became a young woman, I started to make choices that I did have control over and was reacting or responding out of the anger that I had no control over. Got me? And so some of those things that happened to me in life that I had no control over, but the people in my life had decided to make choices. And I was left holding the bag of how am I going to deal with the choices I make for myself in life about the things that I had no control over in life concerning those individuals. And those three individuals were my mother, my father, and my brother. So at the age of 25, and I'm going to wrap this up pretty quick because this can go very long. So at the age of 25, my mother succumbed to lung cancer. Here comes the warning: before destruction, before being destroyed. But my mother was 53, I was 25. At this point, my parents had been divorced close to 20 years. And they had been divorced 22 years. But I chose not to allow it to destroy me. And the reason why people would be so confused when they would see me and see how I'm dealing with it is, my mother was warned when I was 11, well, I would say 13, by her doctors. Now, this is 10 years before she would succumb to this disease, right? Or 11 years. So, my mother was warned by her doctors when I was like 13 to stop smoking. And I remember hearing the conversation she had with her sister, one of her sisters, when she came home from her doctor's visit her primary doctor, and it was to stop smoking. They told her, Bertha, he told her, Bertha, at that time my mother was 40, and they told her, Bertha, you have to stop smoking. You have the lungs of a 60-plus-year-old woman, and she was only 40. Now, take into consideration, my mother made choices. The choices she made was, she started smoking cigarettes when she was a young girl, because they in South Carolina, they picked cotton, they picked tobacco, they rolled their cigarettes. So my mother had been smoking cigarettes since she was a young girl. But at the age of 40, she was told by her doctors, or her doctor, to stop smoking. He told her, if you do not stop smoking, you're not going to live to see your grandchild old enough to have his own children. So at this time, so I was 13, because at this time, my brother's oldest son was 1. And my mother, of course, always bragged about her grandson. And so her doctor was very familiar with my eldest nephew. He told her, if you don't stop smoking, you're not going to live to see your grandson have his own children. And this was a conversation she was having with one of her sisters over the phone, and I overheard it. And she chose, for a little bit, to stop smoking, right? That was her choice. She did, and she stopped. But within 6 months, she started back smoking. Now, me as a young girl looking at that, I became very angry about that as well, because I had overheard the conversation she had. She never knew I overheard the conversation, but I did. But even as a young girl, I was like, well, you know what? I can't control what mommy does. And I became very angry, because I knew what could possibly transpire, right? I had no control over her choice. So, unfortunately, at 53, my mother succumbed to lung cancer. And this is what we have to get. Choices that other people make, you have no control over, right? Their outcome. You do have a choice in how you deal with it. And so my mother succumbed to lung cancer at the age of 53 because of her choice, right? And she did have control over that. I did. She succumbed. My brother succumbed to a massive heart attack because over choices he made. And I've never spoke about this really publicly, but I mean, basically everybody knows. My brother succumbed to a heart attack which was induced by drugs. Okay? And he was 42. Leaving behind now 3 boys. The eldest was, I think, 18, middle 12, and then I think the youngest nephew, my youngest nephew, was like 8. So, and people looked at me at the funeral and they were like, yo, how are you dealing with this? Well, the bottom line is those are my brother's choices that I had no control over. But I did understand that I had no control over his choice. All right? Then my dad succumbed to congestive heart failure. And 6 years before my dad succumbed to congestive heart failure, at the age of 78, So my mom passed in 1997. My brother passed in 2007, and my father passed in 2012. So this all transpired for me from the age of 25 to 38. And when my dad had succumbed to congestive heart failure, I had a 18-month-old, and I was, I think, like 3 months pregnant with our daughter. So getting back to my father and his choice. So he was told, my father walked himself into the hospital 6 years before he passed, and because he was complaining of heart issues, and he found out that he had a heart attack. And at that time, the doctors told him, Ken, you got to stop smoking. He was an avid smoker, along with my mother and my brother. They all smoked heavy. I made the choice not to smoke at the age of 13 when I was, informed concerning my mother. And I said, I will never smoke cigarettes. But anyhow, my father had a heart attack. They told him, you got to stop smoking. He consumed a lot of salt. Your heart is weak. You got to change your diet. He never did. And 2 years before he passed, I met with him and his doctor. And she was saying how, he could have this surgery, this open heart surgery, and it would at least extend his life for maybe another 10 years. So at this point, he's 76. So they're saying, your life can be extended like another 10 years till you're 86. And he said, nope. Right? Something I had no control over. We're talking about choices, having clarity over choices versus control. So he said, nope, I'm not going to have this surgery. I'm not going to have nobody cut me open. And I'm just going to live whatever life I have left. And unfortunately, within that 2-year frame, my father, succumbed to congestive heart failure. Right? And so I've always got it. I've always understood that people's lives are what they are concerning the choices that they make. Right? And you choose to understand I have no control over the other person's choices. So that is the difference between having clarity of choices and control. Right? So I hope I know it did. I know that this helped some people. Remember, check me out at Homegrown Wellness 72. Choose today to order yourself some sea moss gel. Choose today to start your herbal wellness journey. Okay? We are going live this Sunday. I stand corrected. We are going live this Sunday, the 31st, the last day of March at 9 p.m. on my YouTube channel, which is Homegrown Wellness 72 Community. Order your sea moss gel on my website, homegrownfba.company.site. I am Tanya Brooks, your FBA Community Folk Herbalist. Remember, be great to yourself because you are great. Be great to your family. They deserve your greatness. Be great to your community. Without love, self-love first, we have absolutely nothing. And clarity is key, but without consistency, we have no balance. And remember, You have a choice to understand that you have no control over what another person has done. Love you. Have a great day. Remember, you got track practice. Be well, family.